Hello friends, and welcome back to Scaling Stories. Today, I've got some more highly upvoted posts from Best of Redditor updates. Like always, I'll be reading you the posts and giving you my opinions, and I also hope you do the same in the comments down below. Also, I'm currently only in Spotify's creator program, so watching on there would help me out a ton. Thank you so much for your support. Today's first story comes from the Relationships subreddit. It was posted by SecretVasThrowaway on November 22nd, 2014, and was titled, My 28 male, close friend, 28 male, had a vasectomy and is keeping it a secret from his wife, 27 female, who is also a close friend. What do I do? This will be long. I apologize. I have known my friend, Kevin, and his wife, Emily, since high school, and we have stayed very close. The three of us went to different colleges, but they were all within an hour's drive of each other, and we spent a lot of time together. They got together towards the end of our first year and got married soon after graduation. They have been married for around 6 years and together for around 9. After graduating, we all moved back to the metro area where we grew up, although we live about 45 minutes apart. Still, my wife and I spend a lot of time with them. She and Emily have grown to be very good friends and often hang out together without the husbands. Kevin and I also spend quite a bit of time together without the wives, as I was always closer to him than Emily anyway. Before getting married, Kevin and Emily had some early disagreements about children. Emily was very set on having children, and Kevin wasn't sure that he wanted any. Kevin eventually acquiesced and said he would think about it, and they didn't really discuss it again until after they got married. Around 5 years ago, Emily gradually started bringing up the fact that she was ready to start trying to get pregnant. Kevin was adamantly against having children at that point and told her he wanted to wait until he was at a more stable point in his career. He was still at his first post-college job, and while he was making good money for someone his age, the job he was in generally isn't long-term. Think of a field like consulting, where junior-level employees typically have a 2 to 4 year shelf life before they're expected to move on to something else. He told her that he wanted to wait a few years, as the expectation was that she would probably stay at home for a year or two after having the baby. During this ongoing discussion, Kevin confided in me that, while the career explanation was true, it wasn't the whole truth. He was still unsure that he actually wanted to have kids at all and wanted to put it off until he was sure that he really wanted to. He knew it was unfair to Emily not to disclose his feelings on this, but he was worried about her reaction, given how adamant she was about having children. After much discussion, Emily agreed to wait until Kevin had a more permanent job. Around 2.5 years ago, that happened. He took a job in-house with one of his long-term clients and ended up with a small pay jump, much better benefits, a more predictable schedule with less travel, and a lot more job security. Almost immediately after he took the new job, Emily brought up getting pregnant, and Kevin agreed to start trying. As far as I knew at the time, Kevin agreed, and Emily stopped taking birth control. Flash forward to the present, no children yet. Up until this point, as I understand it anyway, their only attempts at conceiving have been to continue their normal activities sans birth control. Since this hasn't worked, Emily has started discussing the possibility of going to a fertility doctor to see if there are any problems. The women on her mother's side of the family, mother, grandmother, an aunt, and a cousin, have a history of having problems conceiving, although with eventual success. I'm not sure what the exact issues are, but I know that Emily's grandmother and mother were 29 before they were able to conceive, with both trying since their early 20s. Yesterday, Kevin confided in me that before he left his previous job, he had a vasectomy without telling Emily. After picking my jaw up off the floor, I started asking him questions to figure out why the hell he would do that. Apparently, after he began to put out feelers for a new job, a process that took about a year, Emily had brought up going ahead and getting pregnant. Kevin pushed back pretty hard to wait, and she told him that was fine. Evidently, Kevin was really leaning towards not wanting children. I wasn't aware of this, since we never really talked about it after the aforementioned conversation. After he got the new job and they started trying to conceive, I just figured he changed his mind and got on board. Shortly after they once again agreed to wait, Kevin became suspicious that Emily wasn't taking her birth control. He would check her pill packs, but wasn't able to confirm one way or another whether she was taking them regularly. According to him, Emily was acting suspiciously, not sure what the specifics were, and was initiating sex much more often than usual. There was something about her periods as well, but I don't remember the reasoning behind that discussion. Evidently, After considering the evidence available to him, he was convinced that she had stopped taking her birth control and was trying to get pregnant after they had agreed to wait. He was angry, but didn't want to confront her with evidence that could be explained away easily by her. At this point, I don't know if she was actually taking her birth control or not. He could have just been right or just paranoid. Given his lack of trust in Emily and his increasing desire not to have children, he decided to get a vasectomy and not tell her. There was a point when he was traveling for his job, which happened often, and was going to be a few states away for about a week and a half. He traveled to this city frequently and was somehow able to arrange to get a vasectomy done in that time. The initial trip was supposed to be 10 days, but a weekend snowstorm caused his flight to be cancelled, and his employer ended up needing him to stay another few days anyway. Again, I have no idea how he was able to arrange visits to a urologist and a vasectomy, not to mention the follow-up visits. I'm also unclear on how long it took him to do this. The timing worked out so that the soreness and swelling were gone by the time he returned from the trip, and, according to him, the scar is completely unnoticeable unless you shine a flashlight on the bottom of his balls and look closely. So, in the past 3-ish years, she has never suspected anything, I guess. He always had his insurance information sent to his office, had enough spare cash socked away to cover his copay and antibiotics/pain medication, and changed insurance when he took his new job, so there aren't any records lying around or in an online account. So that was all well and good for a few years, but now he is in a tight spot because if Emily goes to the fertility doctor and things check out on her end, the next logical step is for him to get tested, at which point it will be obvious to the doctor that he had a vasectomy, or at least he thinks this. I don't know whether that's true or if the test would just show him shooting blanks. He gambled on the fact that Emily's family has a history of problems conceiving, so maybe there will be issues there to place the blame on. He has no idea what to do, but guesses that he can stretch this out for a year or two before he has to go get tested. I am really struggling with this. On the one hand, Kevin is my best friend. On the other hand, he is being totally deceitful to Emily, one of my closest friends. I'm not judging him for not wanting kids, but this is something he should have communicated to her before now. If he had talked to me about the situation before he got the vasectomy, I would have told him that he needed to break things off with her and move on if he was sure he didn't want kids. It wouldn't be fair to her, and it wouldn't be fair to him if they ended up having children, by accident or design, when he didn't want to. But that's not what happened. He's been lying to her for years. I can't tell my wife about this because I have no doubt she will call Emily and tell her immediately. I'm trying to decide whether I should tell Emily, tell Kevin that he has to tell Emily or I will, or completely stay out of the situation. I feel bad about the entire situation, and I don't want to break up their marriage or destroy one or more friendships, but I also don't want Emily to waste any more of her time when having kids is such a big deal to her. What the hell do I do? Scaling Stories Corner. So first off, both Kevin and Emily are dumb for getting married before checking in with each other about serious life deal breakers. In this specific situation, it was to have kids or not. These things need to be a 2 yes type of situation. It can't be 1 yes and 1 maybe, or 1 yes and 1 no. It just doesn't work that way if you plan on staying married and not dealing with all the crap that just went down in this post. Secondly, birth control should be happening on both sides if you're not yet trying for a baby. It shouldn't have just been Emily on birth control if they weren't actively trying for a kid yet. Kevin should have been using condoms alongside Emily's birth control because it takes 2 to tango. Next, Emily is obviously wrong for skipping out on birth control and trying to baby trap Kevin when he was verbally expressing that he wasn't ready for a kid yet. This is assuming that she was actually trying to baby trap Kevin and that he wasn't just paranoid, and that would make her wrong. But Kevin is also the jerk in this situation for pretty much vehemently knowing he wants to be child-free and not communicating any of that with Emily at any point after they got married. He was just kicking the can further and further down the road and hoping that everything magically works out by praying that Emily naturally can't have kids. And literally, to have that mindset, you're just an idiot. I think there's like a running meme when a guy does something stupid, it's a Kevin. And this is literally a Kevin situation. Kevin lying about the vasectomy is obviously bad, and with Emily potentially lying about her birth control, all I can say is you both need to get divorced. This marriage shouldn't have even happened in the first place. There's no point in being together if you're doing crap like this behind each other's backs. There's literally no point. But since Emily wants to have kids, and now that Kevin got a vasectomy and can no longer have kids, they actually can't be together. So I would tell Kevin that he has to come clean to Emily and confess that he can't give Emily kids, and that they need to separate. Then I would probably rethink how I view Kevin as a person for leading Emily on all these years and being able to be deceitful for that long. Emily was still wrong for what she did if she tried to baby trap him. Don't get me wrong, but I view her perspective as like an act of desperation after being led on for so long. Not that it justifies baby trapping. It does not. I just feel a little bit more for her in this situation. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, there is a heavy weight on the side of tell Emily that a lot of others aren't considering. By telling you this secret, Kevin has asked you to lie not only to Emily, but to your own wife as well. If you cannot tell her because you know she will tell Emily, you are making the conscious decision to conceal this from your wife, thus abetting Kevin. He has put your marriage into potential conflict because if and when Emily finds out, you will be trapped between lying and saying you never knew and admitting that you knew and deliberately never told your wife such a huge secret. OP says, I'm leaning towards taking this advice. The more I think about it, the more I think it doesn't really matter if I tell my wife and she tells Emily. I don't think I can really keep something this big from my wife. That's just not how our relationship works. In any case, I think I can convince her to let me deal with it before she tells Emily. OP adds an edit to his post. Thanks for the advice, everyone. I think I have decided on a course of action. I'm meeting up with Kevin for drinks in an hour or so. I'm going to give him an ultimatum. Either he tells Emily within 3 days, or I will. I'm also going to tell my wife after my meeting with Kevin because I can't keep something like this from her and live with myself. I will try to get her to sit on the information as long as possible, but if she tells Emily, then I can't fault her for doing what is probably the right thing. I'm going to tell Kevin that I am telling my wife as soon as I get home from meeting with him and impress upon him the strong possibility that she will tell Emily before he has a chance. This will give him an incentive to tell her sooner rather than later. I will probably ask my wife to let me be there when she tells Emily if she decides that she won't wait. That way, we can both be there for support, and I might have a chance of staying friends with her after this is all over. I will post an update at some point after the crap hits the fan. Thanks again, everyone. OP adds a second edit to his post. Just left from talking with Kevin. I took the exact approach outlined in my first edit, and it went as well as one could hope. He was understanding and apologized for putting me in this situation. He understood my need to tell my wife and said that he wished he had taken that approach in his own marriage. He realizes he needs to tell Emily and that the marriage is likely over. After some reflection, he thinks this is probably for the best because she will never trust him again, and he really doesn't want kids. He is going to sit down and talk with her tomorrow afternoon. OP adds a third edit to his post. Just finished talking with my wife. Holy F, I'll have one hell of an update soon. I don't have time to write it out right now because I need to go to sleep. I'm pretty drained from all of this. I'll update this sometime tomorrow. I'll either edit this thread or post a new one if it takes me longer to write. Stay tuned. If you like drama, just effing wait. Effing FF. OP adds a fourth edit to his post. So, a lot has happened since last night. Holy hell. First off, Emily isn't pregnant, as far as anyone knows. So sorry if you were hoping for that. I'll try to write what happened chronologically so it makes more sense. Here we go. So, I told my wife everything last night after I got home from meeting with Kevin. As you might expect, she was absolutely floored that he would do this to her, given how much she wants kids. She didn't take it as badly as I thought she would, though, which was weird at the time. I really thought her reaction was going to be to say that we need to tell Emily immediately, drive over to their house in a blinding rage, etc. Instead, she told me that she had something to tell me that she had been keeping a secret for a long while. Evidently, a little over a year ago, Emily and my wife were discussing Kevin and Emily's attempts at conceiving. It wasn't unusual for them to talk about this since, at that point, they had been trying for over a year. On this night, though, Emily had had quite a bit to drink and opened up to my wife more than usual. Emily was desperate to start going to the fertility doctor, but Kevin wanted to wait because they hadn't been trying for very long. Unless I misunderstood him, Kevin seemed to imply that Emily had only recently started suggesting going to a fertility doctor. Nope, she has been telling him she wanted to go for over a year. My wife asked her why she wanted to go so soon since they hadn't been trying that long. Emily told her that she had been trying for nearly 4 years. What the F? The following explanation of this is pieced together from my conversation with my wife, what Kevin told me, and my own inferences. I've tried as best I can to make the pieces fit together in a way that makes sense. I'll update and edit if I find out that any of the details aren't correct. Emily stopped taking her birth control while Kevin was still at his old job before he ever started looking for a new one. She pretended to take her pills, hoping she would get pregnant and she could blame it on the fact that birth control isn't 100% effective. Side note, my wife was absolutely floored by the revelation and does not condone her behavior, but continued listening to try and support her friend through what has been a really difficult experience. She stopped taking her pills around 6 months before Kevin started looking for a job. This is the same time at which she started pressuring Kevin to move on from that job. I guess it took 6 months to convince him to finally start the process. So, Kevin agrees that it's time to leave his job, starts talking with headhunters, gently approaching his current clients, etc. They have the above-mentioned talk about going ahead and trying to conceive. Kevin says no, and she agrees to wait. The reason she brought it up on that particular day is that she thought she might already be pregnant, given that her period was late and she had been trying for 6 months. A couple of days later, Emily got a pack of pregnancy tests, and 3 positive results later, she's pregnant. She's excited as hell but wants to wait a bit to tell Kevin, given that they had just agreed to wait to have kids until he got a new job. F. My wife thinks Emily was probably around 2 to 3 weeks along at this point. Around a week and a half later, Kevin is out of state for work, and Emily is planning to spring the news on him when he gets back. He is gone from Sunday night and is supposed to return late on Friday. On Monday night, Emily has a miscarriage. Evidently, this is one of the common mishaps that the women in her family are prone to. My wife told me that Emily's mother had at least 3 miscarriages before successfully carrying her first pregnancy to term. Emily is absolutely devastated. She doesn't tell Kevin about it because then he'll realize that she hasn't been taking her birth control, and crap will hit the fan. She calls my wife, who goes over to her house to comfort her. Note, my wife does not know about the miscarriage at this point, just that Emily was really upset over something. Emily only told her the truth a year ago. I actually think I remember what night this happened on because it was unusual for my wife to drive all the way to Kevin and Emily's house to hang out with her. Usually, they met somewhere in the middle. So, Emily is obviously upset about this but manages to get herself together by the time Kevin gets back. She doesn't say anything about it but immediately starts trying to conceive again. My guess is that this would be the time when Kevin becomes suspicious about her behavior. He was right that she wasn't taking her birth control, but he only realized it after she had a miscarriage and tried even harder to get pregnant again. As far as anyone knows, Emily never got pregnant again between this time and when Kevin had the vasectomy. During a routine visit, Emily asked her OBGYN if there were any problems and told her about the miscarriage. This happened before Kevin started his new job and they officially agreed to start trying to conceive. I don't know if Emily told him, that she had stopped taking her birth control or if she implied that it was accidental. The OBGYN identified something with her uterus that could possibly cause an issue but said she couldn't be sure from a routine exam. She suggested that Emily see a fertility specialist and gave her a referral. Evidently, the specialist wanted to do the first consultation with both Kevin and Emily there, so Emily couldn't start that process until Kevin was on board with conceiving. So, that's the state of things. Emily was lying to Kevin about being on birth control for at least 1.5 years. My wife never told me because she wasn't sure what to do. Since they had officially started trying to have children by the time Emily told her about this, my wife decided to keep the information to herself because it didn't matter at that point anyway. I called Kevin and told him about this late last night. He wasn't as upset as I thought he would be because he had already figured that Emily had stopped taking her birth control back then, although it was actually 6 months before he caught on. He was pretty upset about the miscarriage and felt really bad that Emily had to keep this to herself for all these years. As of right now, he hasn't talked to her yet. That will happen later this afternoon or tonight. F. I may post an update after he talks to her tonight. In all likelihood, though, I'll wait a week or so and post an update after all this has died down and hopefully they have decided what they are going to do. Jeez Louise. I know I don't do commentary after the edits very often, but this felt like a completely separate update on its own. Kevin is obviously still a dick for leading Emily on for so long about wanting a kid and never wanting a kid, and Emily is obviously in the wrong for trying to baby trap Kevin when he expressed that he didn't want a kid at the time that she stopped using birth control. But damn, I would feel a little bad that my wife in this situation, if I was OP, never told me about Emily's situation from over a year ago. I know that's super sensitive information, but I always thought that in a marriage, you two should be comfortable being able to talk to each other about anything and everything and be able to depend on each other instead of holding these secrets and burdens to yourself. Not the end of the world, but just saying. Update 2 days later. Well, Reddit, the situation has resolved itself. Kevin and Emily talked for a long time yesterday, and they've agreed that it's best for them to split up. Too much damage was done, and the lies they told each other were too big. Not to mention the kids issue. I wasn't there, obviously, but I've talked to them both, and they seem better than I expected. Both of them are really angry, but as much is directed at themselves as at each other. Strangely enough, they were both really glad for my involvement. Emily wasn't even pissed at my wife for telling me about the birth control fiasco. I have no idea whether my wife and I will be able to remain friends with either of them. They were both really deceitful to each other and to us, but I think I'm willing to move past that eventually. We'll see how this goes. Thanks to everyone who commented. I don't think I would have approached this situation correctly were it not for some of the responses I got here. ScalingStories Corner. Well, yeah, they got divorced. That was long overdue, and I think we all knew that. For the friendship part, I'm not too sure either. Both of them committed wrongs to each other, and 2 wrongs don't make a right. Depending on our past experiences and how much of a good memory and relationship we've built up until that point, I can still consider to keep these people as friends as long as they've done some self-reflection and earnestly tried to right their wrongdoings. But I'm not sure if I would consider these people my best friends anymore, you know? Okay, friends, so that concludes our first story of the day. Next up, we have a story from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. It was posted by helmetwoman on March 4th, 2019, and was titled, Am I the Jerk for not wanting to recreate my fiance's parents' motorcycle trip honeymoon? It's great they did it, but it's not what I want. Posting from a throwaway for reasons. Background, I'm engaged to be married in August. My fiance's parents owned a motorcycle dealership, and on their honeymoon, they took brand new motorcycles on a road trip across several states. Apparently, it has always been my future mother-in-law's dream that her son and his wife recreate the trip. My fiancé apparently bought into this without consulting me. They just had us over for Sunday dinner, and I was presented with a brand new motorcycle. The funny thing is, I've never ridden a motorcycle. I have no interest in motorcycles, and frankly, they scare the crap out of me. Along with the motorcycle came an itinerary, a set of ridiculous-looking leather gear, and some cash to make the trip happen. My fiancé was like, "Aren't you so happy?" I told him, in a way I consider polite but direct, that I appreciated the thought but that I was not interested in recreating the trip. All of a sudden, it was 3 against 1, and apparently, all of a sudden, I'm a complete piece of crap for ruining his parents' dreams. His mom actually screamed at me that they spent some ungodly amount on the motorcycle. I didn't hear exactly, but 20K? 30K? More? I'm not sure. And I was being very unappreciative. I excused myself and drove home. I'm shaking from being talked to that way. Please talk me off the ledge of Crazy Town. Am I the jerk here? ScalingStories Corner. Nah, absolutely not the jerk. And who is dropping 20 or 30K without even bringing up the topic of a motorcycle road trip to OP? That is one of the dumbest financial decisions I've ever heard. Like, what if OP was scared of skydiving, but you still dropped 20 or 30K to try and get her to skydive? Is she suddenly supposed to be excited and giddy at the idea just because you spent a lot of money on it? No, absolutely not. The fact that the fiancé went along with this plan without ever mentioning it to OP is a gigantic red flag. OP is supposed to be his future life partner, and he's not including or giving her a say in something as big as her honeymoon plans. And what about OP's parents? What if it was OP's parents' dream to have OP and her newlywed husband to travel to Vegas and drop a bunch of money on slots and roulette? I guess she and they don't have a say in it because apparently the fiancé and his family is just that much more important than her. I would most definitely cancel the engagement if I was OP and need to have some serious discussions about priorities to the fiancé after he pulled something like this. And if he doesn't back down or accept fault, I think I would break up with him and be thankful that this came out before we got married. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the original post. Commenter 1 says, not the jerk, especially if you've shown zero interest in this trip and motorcycles. What does your significant other have to say about it? OP says, he was thrilled at first. He didn't leave with me and he hasn't tried to call, so I don't know what he's thinking now. Commenter 2 says, Honest opinion. Your boyfriend is a jerk. Seriously, motorcycles are dangerous, and if you don't feel safe and confident driving one, you absolutely should not ride it at all, let alone hundreds of miles across several states. What kind of logic is that? OP says, thank you for the input. I'm assuming you ride? Their objection to this line of thinking was that I have plenty of time before the trip in September to get comfortable. Is this at all reasonable? Commenter 3 says, not the jerk. They're huge jerks for springing this on you and making it out that you are somehow in the wrong for not being grateful. F that. Get out now, because to be honest, if your fiance is this easily swayed by his parents' wishes now rather than considering what you want as his future wife, it ain't going to get better. Update 5 months later. I was supposed to be getting married last weekend, but for a whole host of reasons, I had called it off back in June. I loved my fiance, but it became more and more apparent that his parents, and especially his mom, really wanted to be deeply involved in our lives. Click my post history on how she planned my honeymoon for me. The absolute final straw came when my fiance and I had a huge fight about wedding plans, and the words he was saying just weren't his, if that makes sense. But the fight ended with him getting his way because I was just so exhausted. A few days later, I found an email printed in the recycling bin, written by his mom, that was essentially a bullet point list of talking points he'd used in the fight. I was disgusted and broke up with him immediately. And, though it was tough, after we got everything settled, I did my best to cut contact. I had an amazing summer, partied, got laid, and ate what would have been my wedding cake off the bodies of my friends on a poteen boat on Lake Havasu. I did my best to put it behind me. Well, with the date having passed, his mom has been emailing me things like, just so sad to see this date pass and Alex be so sad. And, if only we knew what was so wrong that you won't even talk to him. And my favorite, I'd be happy to be a mediator between you two. His mom is obviously the alpha male in the family, but she has severe and physical emotional problems and had a legit heart attack when my ex-fiance's sister told her off. But my ex-mother-in-law uses this to have one-sided fights, which I feel she is doing now. I don't feel it's fair that she gets to send me message after message, passive-aggressively assigning blame to me. I want to call her and explain to her all that she did wrong. Would I be the jerk if I did this? Scaling Stories Corner. Yikes on bikes. That is crazy that this guy's life is so deeply enmeshed with his mother. It's kind of sad because we've seen a couple other Reddit stories on here with parents like that, and it always ruins the life for the son or daughter in question. Good on OP for getting away from that family. It's so stupid and toxic of the mom to be saying crap like, oh, we don't even know what went so wrong that you won't even talk to him anymore. Like, lady, you literally wrote him a PowerPoint presentation on how and what to argue with OP about. Like, where is the self-awareness? She's actually crazy. I would just block her and not give her the satisfaction of having one more conversation with me. Now here are some of the top/relevant comments from the update post. Commenter 1 says, not the jerk. Just so sad to see this date pass and Alex be so sad. Yeah, it's really unfortunate you were so overbearing and ruined it for us. I did my best to cut contact. Your best kinda sucks if you didn't even block her phone number. I don't feel it's fair that she gets to send me message after message, passive-aggressively assigning blame to me. I want to call her and explain to her all that she did wrong. Here's another idea. Block her effing number. Commenter 2 says, they were emails? OP says, it honestly didn't occur to me to block her email. I did block her phone before I even broke up. Commenter 3 says, does your ex know you found the bullet points? I feel like this email should go to him. If he knows you found the bullet points, he needs to tell his mother that's why you ultimately broke up. If he doesn't know, then tell him, and hopefully in his next relationship, he can leave his mother out of it. Either way, emailing your ex might be a better option. Whatever you say will be repeated to her anyway. After this time apart, he might be open to cutting her out of his life if it means having you back. OP says, he does. We had a huge fight after my finding them, and that's when I told him I was done with him. Okay friends, so that concludes today's video. Leave a like and comment down below to let me know what you thought of it, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.